Hey everybody, welcome back to the Just the Watch Watch of the Month Club. I'm Dave, and every month on the channel I like to do this segment where we take a look at the best watches in a certain category and try and find the best watches in that category for under $200. And I always recommend two watches of those out of that group. I'm going to recommend one at a silver tier, which will always be $120 or less, and one at a bronze tier that will always be $60 or less. This month we're looking at Panda dials. The idea of this segment is that it's meant to be an alternative to watch subscription service. So instead of you sending in your $120 a month to a service and getting a random watch that you may or may not like, I'll just recommend you a watch and you can go decide if you like it or not. And if you do, go ahead and purchase it yourself. I'll leave links to all these watches down below. And if you don't like the two watches I recommend, we always look at a long list of honorable mentions. Stick around and look at the honorable mentions because you might find a watch in there that appeals to you more. Before we jump into this month's list, I want to announce the category for next month. Next month we're going to be taking a look at GMT watches. So I do this so that I can get your suggestions. If you know of any good GMT watches under $200, drop me a comment down below, help me compile a list, and together I think we can get some good recommendations to give out to everybody and get a better list together. GMT watches is a hard one. I've kind of been avoiding that because there's not a lot of options that I'm aware of in this price range, particularly in the bronze price range. So a GMT watch for $60 or less is fairly hard to come by. So please help me out if you're aware of anything there. But if you know of any good GMT watches for $200 or less, let me know down in the comments down below. I am going to reserve the right on GMT watches to expand it a little bit if necessary. So if I can't find a good selection of genuine GMT complications, we'll open it up to any watch that can be considered like a dual time watch, something that can display two time zones. So it could be like a world time, could even be a watch that has a 12-hour bezel that you can rotate and use that to display a second time zone. But the goal will be genuine GMT complications. With all that said, let's go ahead and jump into the list for this month, and we'll take a look. Again, we're taking a look at Panda dial watches. So Panda dial is kind of this really vintage look, kind of very classic, sporty, really fun, almost a little bit of Art Deco, I think, kind of look going on. Very striking. We're looking at Panda dials and reverse Panda dials. A Panda dial, of course, has a white background with black subdials, so it kind of looks like the face of a panda. Reverse Panda dial is the opposite, black dial with white subdials. So either one, we'll be looking at both of those. But let's start with our bronze recommendation this month. So always has to be $60 or less. This month is coming in at significantly less than that, and you can pick up this Casio MTP1192A for $38. Now the thing that is most striking about this particular watch is its size. This is a 36mm diameter watch, 9mm thick, and 20mm lug width. So it's a very small watch, very kind of classic vintage sizing, and something I think a lot of people tend to avoid. Most people now are into the more modern sizes of 40mm and up, and they sort of stay away from these smaller sizes. But classically and historically, watches used to be a lot smaller, and a lot of people are saying that that small watch trend is coming back in. And I recently picked up a Seiko 5 that's on the smaller side. I have a 7.5-inch wrist. And it was a 37mm Seiko 5, and I actually really liked the way it looked on my wrist. So I think if you haven't ever tried a small watch before, this is a good chance to give it a shot, especially if you're looking for watches at $60 or less. I really like the style of this one. It's a very kind of classic sort of dress watch style, but because of that Panda dial, it adds a little bit of sportiness to it. So this is not a chronograph. This is actually a multifunction Panda dial, so it's giving the subdials are displaying day, date, and I think 24-hour time. But because it's a dress watch with a Panda dial, I think you can kind of get away with wearing it, dressing it up or down. You can put it on a leather strap and it'll give a nice sort of fun dress watch look, or you can put it on leave it on its metal bracelet or throw it on a NATO or something, get a more casual, sporty look, get a lot of versatility, and again, you get that kind of vintage sizing at the 36mm size. So definitely be aware of the size because that's the main thing that you got to keep in mind. If you don't want a small watch, this is not going to be the one for you. And if you don't want a small watch, stick around. We've got some larger, more modern sizing coming up in the honorable mentions. Moving on to our silver recommendation, we're going to be taking a look at the Swatch Verdone, which you can pick up for $76. This is the first Swatch that we've gotten into the list, and I've been hoping to get one in for a while. This one really stood out to me. If you haven't looked at Swatch before, they have just a ton of really fun watches. They're extremely collectible. Think like baseball cards or Pokemon or something. It's like, it's like you almost can't buy just one, is what people say. And I've been hoping to get one for a while. I haven't quite picked one up yet, but this one was really appealing to me. It's a really cool looking, kind of quirky watch. This one's sort of an olive khaki colored Panda dial, which you don't ever see that color combination. It's got some nice accents with a nice kind of orangish red chronograph pusher. And it being a Swatch, it's a little bit unique. So, it's a Swiss watch. It's meant to be, the idea of a Swatch is meant to be like your second watch. It's not meant to be your main watch. And so they tend to be cheaper, a little bit more on the kind of beater watch end of things. And yeah, just kind of a fun watch that you can wear out and about. So this one actually has a plastic case, which is very unusual for watches. It has a silicone band. And again, just the main draw of this, I think, is the looks of it, but it does have a Swiss chronograph quartz movement inside of it. So really kind of cool combination of, just this sort of fun, laid back Swiss watch, which again is something you don't typically think of outside of Swatch. But if you're building a collection of watches where you're buying a watch at $120 every month, I think this watch will fit into that kind of a collection great. And it comes in well under $120. You can pick it up for $76, and that's why it makes this month's silver tier recommendation. Moving on to our unofficial gold category. So officially I haven't announced committed to doing a gold recommendation every month, but unofficially I always try and pick one that I think is a good value at a little bit higher price. And this one I'm cheating a little bit because it's actually a little bit over $200. But right now you can pick it up on AliExpress. You can get the Merkur FOD Siegel hand-wound chronograph watch. It's a reverse Panda dial, really cool vintage watch. You can see the size down below. It's only a 38 millimeter watch. So again, you're going back to this kind of classic vintage size, vintage style, but it's got an actual hand-wound mechanical chronograph movement. You're not going to find anything else like this other than the other Seagull watches. The Seagull makes the 1963 chronograph, which I think this is kind of a reskin of that one. But yeah, so the only mechanical chronograph watches you're going to find under like $700 is probably going to have this Seagull movement in it. So I really appreciate Seagull putting out an affordable mechanical chronograph movement to give this kind of an option in there. And it's a movement that seems to be very, very much appreciated even by watch collectors. It's a beautiful movement to look at as well. So it's really cool to have that display case back on the back of this one. This one also has an acrylic crystal, another thing to note. So a little bit interesting there. Definitely going to pick up scratches very easily, but that's part of the vintage charm of it. I think that acrylic has kind of a very old school look, and acrylic is nice because you can clean those scratches off fairly easily. There's a lot of videos that talk about methods for doing that if you're interested in that. So again, I think this one typically it retails for around $250. Right now on AliExpress, I think it's on sale for $207 if you rush over and pick it up. So that's this month's unofficial gold tier recommendation. All right, let's go ahead and go through the honorable mentions. I'm going to start with the least expensive and move our way up to the most expensive. So first of the honorable mentions, for $65, we have the Benin Sons Voyager chronograph. And this is a very crisp, clean Panda layout. You're getting a very stark white dial with very crisp black the three black subdials. So about as classic of a Panda dial layout that you can get. This one, it comes with a Seiko quartz movement. It's not a mecha quartz, but it's a Seiko movement inside. 100 meters of water resistance, and these really beautiful cathedral hands. I'm kind of a sucker for cathedral hands, and you don't usually see those on Panda dial chronographs. So this is kind of a striking look, and I really thought it was kind of cool. So that one is why that one kind of really jumped out at me. But yeah, the specs and everything are great as well. 44 millimeter case, a little bit on the larger side. So again, if you weren't interested in that Casio because it was too small, maybe this is something that's pretty close to $60 that might also interest you. Next, we have the Parnis chronograph. So Parnis makes a whole range of Rolex Daytona homages, and they have a lot of different dial options. I've seen some reviews on some of the Daytona homages they've done, and people seem to be fairly impressed typically with what they put together. This one is claimed to have a sapphire crystal. I believe it's a Seiko Mecha Quartz movement inside this one. You can pick it up again for $75. The one that really stood out to me, they have a lot of different dial options. A lot of them are straight up Daytona homage rip-offs, whatever you want to call them. They're very clearly trying to make it look like a Daytona. This particular dial, I don't think it's a Daytona dial. I'm not, I'm not like an expert on Daytonas by any means, but it's not a dial that I've seen on any other Rolex Daytonas, so I could have just missed it. But it's a very vintage look to it. You're getting a cream dial with black, two black subdials, so a little bit different layout than most of the other ones, and I thought it was really cool. Definitely also appreciate the size on this one, 39 millimeter diameter, which is really great, great size for a chronograph. And you're getting a pretty decent stainless steel bracelet, so a lot of high quality stuff for 75 bucks. Parnis is a great option to check out in this price range. Moving up a little bit, we're going to take a look at the Invicta Pro Diver chronograph, which you can pick up for $89. Invicta's a lot of times kind of looked down on. People don't like their more flashy and huge watches. A lot of people don't prefer that style, but almost everybody, watch snobs and non-watch snobs alike, tend to like the Pro Diver. It's sort of Invicta at its more subdued, and it's, you know, it's a traditional dive style watch. The Pro Divers usually borrow a lot of design elements from the Rolex Submariner. Here you're getting that kind of Pro Diver aesthetic with a Panda dial chronograph. So yeah, so you get a nice you know, stainless steel dive style watch with a kind of cool Panda dial chronograph. And the one downside of this one is it only has 50 meters of water resistance. So if it's the Pro Diver, you would have expected to have 200 meters of water resistance, or at least 100 meters of water resistance. I'm not sure why they took the Pro Diver look and then only threw 50 meters of water resistance on it. But still, it's a really cool looking watch, and it does give you, in addition to the chronograph, you're also getting a 60-minute you know, unidirectional bezel. So that's kind of a cool option to have on a chronograph watch as well, I think. Next, we're going to take a look at the Gigandet. I don't know how to pronounce this. It's a German watch. Well, it's a German company anyways, but they have a couple of them on sale on Amazon. I've actually had this one on my Amazon wish list for over a year now. Never quite pulled the trigger on it, but it really struck me as just kind of like, you know, a real classic quintessential Panda dial watch. It's a really good price for the specs that they're giving you. I think this one has a Miyota quartz movement inside. Really cool, clean, retro design. Really nice, beautiful dial. Good dimensions, 43 millimeter case. You're getting 100 meters of water resistance as well. And another kind of cool function of this one is, so you've got the typical tachometer bezel going around the outside, but if you look closely on the chapter ring, they put a telemeter scale. So tachometer, obviously that allows you to calculate speed, you know, how fast something is traveling using the stopwatch function. The telemeter allows you to calculate how far away something is based on sound. So it's a really interesting complication. I think the old school application was they would use it for cannon barrage to try and figure out how far away the artillery was. Now you could use it to time lightning and figure out how far away the lightning strike was. Anyways, it's a fun complication to have, and kind of cool that they included both the tachometer and the telemeter on this one. Moving up to $170, we're going to take a look at a Seiko. Always have to put a Seiko on this list and check out what they're offering. This was my favorite Seiko Panda dial. Much more modern than a lot of the others. A lot of these other ones have kind of a vintage look. This is a very sleek, modern design, and I think they nailed the design. This is one of the best Panda dial designs that I found. Really clean, really crisp, really smooth, and yet very modern aesthetic. I love the red pusher that they put on this one. Really cool look to it. It's also a solar powered watch, and you're getting 100 meters of water resistance, so really tough. Again, Seiko brand behind it. Yeah, everything about it I really enjoy. The only downside of this one is it's really hard to find, so there's not a lot of them for sale. I think Amazon, they're listed that they only have one left, so I was hesitant to even put it on the list because of that. But if you snatch it up fast, hopefully it's still available. If you're interested in it, you can go grab it. $170. Again, Seiko, solar powered, really cool chronograph. Panda dial, a lot to like about it. Very close in price, we're going to take a look next at the Citizen BL4570-06A. $186 you can get this Citizen chronograph. This one has got a lot of features in it. So not only do you get a chronograph, you're also getting an alarm and a perpetual calendar. So perpetual calendar is supposed to be that the watch can keep track of which month it is. So it knows whether there's 31 days in the month or 30 days in the month. It can adjust the date automatically accordingly. That's a really interesting feature to see in a watch under $200. I'm not aware of many others, at least on analog watches. Digital watches, it's fairly common, but to find an analog watch that has a perpetual calendar and an alarm and a chronograph, And to top it off, it's also a Panda dial, so kind of cool look to it. This is, I think, a really great looking watch. It's also Citizen Eco Drive, so it's solar powered. It's also got 100 meters of water resistance. So feature wise, this one definitely has the best feature set of anything else on this list. And you can get it for 186 bucks. So really cool watch there as well. All right, last watch that we're going to take a look at is probably the toughest watch on the list. And it's a Swiss military, I think it's called the Hawk, I think is the name of it. This is just a really tough watch. You're getting 200 meters of water resistance, black PVD stainless steel case and bracelet, and a sapphire crystal, and it's a cool Panda dial chronograph watch. So if you're looking for something that can really take a beating, if you want that Swiss quality and craftsmanship behind it, this is maybe the watch for you. You can pick it up for $200, and that is our final recommendation for this month's Watch of the Month Club. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think of these watches. If there's anything that really stood out to you, what your favorite one on the list was, and if you have owned any of these watches, definitely give your feedback and experience on what you thought of the watch down below, so that others who might be considering it can get some more feedback on these particular watches. Again, next month we're going to be taking a look at GMT watches, so please give me your recommendations for your favorite GMT watch under $200. Drop me a comment for that as well, and we'll compile all those together, and in the month of September we'll take a look at GMT watches. So we'll see you next time. In between now and then, of course, as always, we're going to be taking a look at some other watch reviews. We'll be talking about watches and just doing other fun stuff like we always do here on the channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.